Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this special holiday event that we have here. And we're celebrating Jean Gendlin's birthday together in a slightly different way than we've done in the past. Because Rachel said, well, we've heard a lot of stories about Jean from the people who knew him. But what about all the people that didn't know him, the second generation? So Rachel is going to tell us a little bit about that idea of how Jean is living in us. And we have some people that have prepared to speak for a few moments, and then we want to hear from you and have a conversation. And this is going to be a wonderful time together. So welcome. And Rachel?
Yes, welcome again. More extra welcomes in this special meeting. Um, I actually am going to just read something I prepared. Um, so, welcome, everybody. Everyone is here because they have been touched by Jean Gendlin in some way. As a divorce mediator, not a therapist, but a divorce mediator, I work with people in the throes of relational crises who are often triggered by past losses and traumas. My clients are often distraught and dysregulated. Before a meeting, I have Jean in my ear. I remind myself there many things, but the couple things I'm sharing that are with me all the time. I remind myself I am another shaky person in a chair. Rather than aiming to rise above my humility, I root into it, recalling that my shakiness is a vital part of what I share with my clients. I rely on it to join us through our humanness, our fragile, exuberant humanness. In this way, I hope my clients are accompanied by more than a professional, but by another human being. This comes from Jean. Um, my other and just the second favorite teaching from Jean is to be the interaction that makes the other better. This is a large and luminous proposition. Instead of explaining or criticizing, directing or instructing, we are challenged to do something creative and transcendent, to provide the other with the relational experience that improves how they are. I never knew Gene. I know Gene only through his writings, teachings, and through the students of Gene who became my teachers. Each of my teachers carried forward some aspect of Gene's teaching and spotlit something new from their unique lenses. Gendlin's apprentices, my teachers, who were Gene students, brought Gene Gendlin's lifeline, his teachings, into prismatic view. So, just concluding with a couple of things from my teachers who were Gene students. Because of Lynn Preston, I play with saying, oh, good, to conflict. And though I still brace myself, I lean deliberately towards it. Because of Charlotte Haworth, another of my teachers, I trust my inner sense of a situation. I permit myself tears when they come in my work. I'm aware that the realm of imagination has its own geography. Robert Lee taught me the brilliance of the question and self focusing, how selecting the right word can make all the difference. He might say, is there a way you can X while also being Y? So something like, is there a way you can be productive while being curious, humorous, tender, relaxed? And just using these words differently opened another world. And finally, and there are many teachers I've had, not all mentioned here, but from John Keene, I have repurposed, which is a euphemism for stolen, his lovely sign off, which is itself a blessing. Go gently, my friend, he says, and that is what I now say to each of you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm, mm, yeah. Well, first, I'm Russell, and I'm very grateful to Lynn and Katerina and Rachel for organizing this event for us to be together. It's quite magical to see people from all over the world, and we're sitting here together, each having our experience of being alive. And what Jean stood for me more than anything, was to value, to deeply value, to infinitely value the difference between the living experience and our ideas about the living experience. And to really guide us toward a kind of, I would say, bowing or awe or gratitude or something about that in the human experience is connection to this infinite. And that is remarkable. So before I say anything more, I just want to maybe pause together just for a second and just drop in a little bit and say, hey, we're here together on this Monday. For some of you, it's afternoon. For some, it's very early morning. And wow. So I picture Jean really appreciating that we're not hero worshiping Jean. We are deeply valuing Jean, deeply valuing what lives forward in our experiencing from his great insights and his courageous diving deeply into human experience, human embodied experience, feeling, thinking, body, all as one. So as we meet each other and share with each other, it's almost like there are two worlds for me. There is Gene living forward. I had the blessing of knowing many interactions with him, knowing him pretty well. We were focusing partners for a long time, and I would say friends for a long time. And that lives so forward, and yet more authentically than any teacher I've ever known, he didn't want it to be about him. He wanted it to be about where we are going with when the candle got lit in us, how we are then spreading that light. And that's what I would hope we would emphasize in this call together. And sometimes it's sharing experiences of Gene or your teachers, but it's really how it's living forward. And that's my encouragement. And Lynn, did you want to say something before I started to call on people that we know wanted to speak?
Um, just, just encouraging people to both take in what's said and also to feel into how Gene Gendlin is living in you. What is your inner Gene Gendlin? And what is the interaction between you and Gene Gendlin and the world, and how is it carrying forward? So that's what we want to celebrate and share and think about and sort of savor together. Like, wow, we have something so wonderful. A candle that's lit from a fire that's that's warming so many places in the world.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So, Isabel, I know you need to leave fairly soon, so maybe you can share what you would like to share first.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Really joyful and excited to be here sharing space. I'll share a little bit about how I came into this work. I like to say I came into Jean's Gendlin work through a back door, um, through a friend of mine, Dara. And Dara was working at the Garrison Institute, and the week long was often celebrated there. And one day she said, there was this program and there was all these people and this incredible work. And in true nature to the Ra, when she finds something that it's for the good of all, she will share it and not stop until you have joined in. And I ended up coming in through the door of focusing oriented therapy in the indigenous community with Shirley Turker, who was friends with Jean, and also Rob Parker, who also was a student and a friend. And to the question of how Gene teachings, and I never met him, but I heard him many times in person. He will call sometimes when we were Rob's home learning, or other times, and so I have his voice kind of like in my head. But the way that Gene teachings have continued to live in my life is through Lynn, who Lynn is it's in another tradition. For me, Lynn is an emissary of Jean, and so the quote that guides me, and I'm going to read it. It's from one of his books, focusing on oriented therapy. Is this quote? It is generally important to encourage clients to sense for what would be right at the moment, to let the process direct both of us. And that's sort of like being present in the moment with my clients rather than the next thing or the thing in the past has really been helpful for me, especially working with young people, children who have complex trauma history. There can be a lot of focus on the history rather than this moment, and that quote just generally focusing in that moment, and being open to what's to come gives a sense of hope to myself and to the young people I work with. And just deep bows of gratitude of how everyone is carrying this forward in one way or another. Thank you so much. And I will leave at 8:45, and I'm here until then.
Good.
Thank you, Isabel, and thank you for reminding us of coming back to that present moment, whatever else is going on. Yeah, yeah. Carrie, all the way over there in Vietnam. Hi, hi, hi.
Good morning, everyone. It's nighttime here. It's about 10 or 9:30 p.m. So we are circling around the globe as we are holding this space. And I, first of all, I feel I feel a sense of how did I land here in this group? It's like, how did life takes me here? And it's also another way of saying how am I so blessed? How come I'm so blessed to be guided here? And perhaps a common connection is Eugene Gendlin. And so I would like to start by saying I have not met him, right? But he is so alive in me. The first time when I know of an existence of a person as him was when a supervisor told me to go to the library and look for this blue book. And the moment I open it, it just, I felt like inside me there was this spark that I'm not alone and that I can put words to it now. And that I know so little and yet I know, and that it's only going to be born more and more out of continuing to be open to it. So that spark of just opening the book and reading a few lines, there's that aliveness in me, even though he's no longer here and I have never met him. And I think throughout my journey, I've been with focusing for about 3 years. And throughout my journey, I never really have a desire to know him. I mean, I never wonder like what is his favorite clothes or his favorite food, or, it was never the thing that he promoted or wanted to become known for. And yet, I feel like every day, every single day now, I'm very curious. Like I would love to, or somehow, even though I don't have that desire to know, he is just unfolding and expanding in my life. This morning I was listening, I went for a jog and I was listening to the group process where Lynn Preston was guiding us through the process of what's focusing. And as I listened to that and I have my morning walk, I feel like I'm guided, even though he doesn't need me to know who he is. And yet, yeah, I'm being guided in my path of what's meant for me. And this afternoon, I felt like finally I'm ready to show up in social media as this shaky self. And I felt like I read that phrase 2.5 years ago, and somehow it lived in me and I'm able to do it now.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and that's something that I feel like he is like a playmate where, when you like something so much and you want to discover it, and then here I am liking this so much and I want to discover this, and I know there's this person who has been discovering this and we share this thing together, and now we all kind of share this together, and the expansion is just growing. And it's growing to this side of the world. And it's only continuing to grow, and I want to honor him and at the same time the inspiration of who he is.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you. That moment where the spark, your moment in the library opening the book is now moving around the world. That moment is alive, and that spark is alive. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. Dana and Baruch, would you be willing to share something with us?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Very glad and grateful for this invitation. I learned focusing, it was, I think, 2003 with Ann Weiser Cornell in New York. But I was also very fortunate to study a process model simultaneously. In the beginning, it was Bob Parker. And what I found that although, of course, as everyone, the practice is so wondrous and wonderful and changing life situations so deeply, encountering the worldview, the model in a process model had, I think, even greater transformation of who am I and how I understand life itself and my own existence with it or through it. So it's like finding it, I realized that in a way, all my life I was longing to a different model of reality. To understand my existence differently than everything that the culture was bombarding me. And I went to study different philosophy. It's not that I didn't try, but I didn't find that. And when I find this living text, I felt that it's what I was looking for. And for this, I dedicated many, many years to slowly, I feel that there's so much treasures in a process model that weren't opened yet. What the practice of focusing is just waiting for, being carried forward in more depth to places that I myself cannot envision, because what he writes there is totally, I don't have a dot. I don't have a words to describe it. And I went with it for many years, and then I met Baruch, and he came and slowly also showed me and taught me the wisdom of the ancient Judaism. Maybe you can call it the esoteric text. And again, it was like, wow, I don't believe it. There's so much connection between those. And I saw that while studying the ideas of Kabbalah, I could understand things that I couldn't understand while reading Gendlin alone. I had to be pointed to places where I felt, implicitly, I felt that there's something more about a human being, about how to open life from a different viewpoints, but I couldn't by myself give it words. And then when I met Baruch, we started to work with it together, and now we are offering a course of the focusing from a Kabbalistic viewpoint, because I think both of them, you can see Gendlin in a new light, but also Gendlin without knowing it. We are calling him sometime a hidden Kabbalist, because he carried forward with his insights and concept something very, very meaningful. And maybe Baruch, you want to say a little bit about it.
Thank you. I was brought up, I can say, in the Kabbalistic field. What it means to live life in the Kabbalistic field. It means that when you relate to reality, you relate to something that is not exist as something, but as a container that in reality it means something that contains inside it so many things. It means to live in the Kabbalist, you can, if you want, you can call it after, I will put Malchut, that nothing, the reality is nothing from itself, but only things that they are nourish it, or the living process that nourish it. To live in a Kabbalistic world, it means that you have to, it's the basic understanding. If I will quote King Solomon, there is nothing new under the sun, but as the Kabbalistic say, there is nothing old above the sun. And your even mission, your responsibility is all the time, it's all the time to carry forward, to participate in the creation, to create new understanding, to create new paradigms, and through it, to participate in the creation of life. And this is part not only of your possibility, you have to, I can say, to develop yourself, to have to build in yourself this ability, and then it is your responsibility. This is what it means to be human being in the world. And the way to process it is through the process of the, you can say it, the first person, first body in your through your body, but your body is like the tree of life. It is the process. It is a process without content. There, I grew up. And then when I met Gendlin, I was surprised because I saw a few things that that are similar. And when you cross them together, as Dana said, you start to understand differently both of them. If I look at Gendlin, what I can see? I see someone that you can see through his writing that he didn't live. His understanding about what it means to be a human being, it is not is not materialized. It is not a narrowing picture of what it means to be human. To understand that to be a human being, it means to be the process. It means that you have to change. You have the way that you understand life, you understand what it means to be human, supposed to be in a radical way, you have to change it. And if I only will, there are so many things that he speaks about, how to carry forward from the pre-concept, how to let go of yourself and not to be in the obedience of your own self. So many things, how you are part of a not order that is not yet finished, that it's all the time your commitment is to carry forward life. And in order to do it, you must to go out from the picture that you have about yourself and about the world. This is one thing that is so similar to the Kabbalistic world. Another thing that he, like the Kabbalistic sages, he created new terms that in order to work with them, you must to go beyond, again, beyond the narrowing or the concrete way that you understand yourself, situation, the process of life. And to create new terms that can help you to process this process of to be a human, it's similar. The Kabbalistic made it in a different way, and he made it in a different way. Another thing that I can say it was similar for me, that he created a practice. The practice, it's not a practice. There is connection, there is interconnection between the way that someone understands life, the way that the model that he lives his life through, and the practice that he creates in order to carry forward his perception about life. And I think when I saw the similarity, and then I find that when you cross them together, something will become more fruitful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Baruch. And Baruch and Dana, thank you so much for this big picture of the interactive process of living that includes everything. And so grateful for how you're carrying the work forward. It's so beautiful. Maybe we'd just take a moment to let all that kind of wash through us. There was a lot in that. And take a breath or two and feel amazing teachings we're receiving here. Reminders. And Greg, are you there? Would you be willing to share something with us about the living process?
Well, I mean, after that, I feel like what I was going to say feels so small. But when I think of Gene, I think of just the specific instances when I got to spend time with him. And he was very generous with his time. I know a lot of us got to spend time with him. And I was thinking that he really embodied this beautiful balance between generosity and rigor. He was very generous in his being. He was very curious about where that comes from in you, whatever thing you're trying to say. And at the same time, he was incredibly rigorous. He would not let go and let something sort of uh, unformed stay unformed. And I really appreciated that in him. Having had the experience of trying to write something with them on one occasion, that emphasis on rigor became very demanding. But it was really always a very life impacting experience to spend time with him. And I think when I think about that, I think what it leaves me with is the importance of the practice that he described and the practice that he lived and the practice that brings all of us together. Because it reminds me of the Bible when there's this distinction between having a fish or being taught how to fish. And that's what I feel Gene really taught us how to find for ourselves, our understanding, things that no one else has brought into the language, not just to adopt even his terms, but to really do the work ourselves. And I think he always was so encouraging of that. And that's what I'm left with.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you for emphasizing this generosity, this generous spirit, and this rigor, that it wasn't generosity, oh, anything you say is just fine. What do you really mean under that? Are you saying what's really true in your experience? And pushing us to really find maybe new language. Maybe the old language doesn't work for what is living in us. And boy, that permission to create new language. Wow, I've never heard that before. I thought we had to fit into the old language. And that opens the world, right? The uniqueness of each of us. Wow. So thank you. Thank you so much. And Lynn, I'm forgetting who are the other people who had signed up to say something. So I need help. Wait,
Katerina will be the help for that.
okay, I see
But
Rosa just wrote something that she wanted to say. So, Rosa, why don't you go
Sure.
ahead and Katerina, you can start calling on the people I'm forgetting. Let's start with Rosa.
Thank you, Russell.
Sure.
Thank you, all of you who have organized it. I'm feeling deeply, deeply moved by all of us being together. Oh. There's something I feel called to share, and it feels sticky because it feels unpopular, and yet it was so much what I got from Gene. His passion for the world and his passion for history and his passion for what is the moment in time that we are in right now. And the reason I'm saying this is because I find that what he offered us is so relevant and pertinent right now, where people are, as some of you may have seen, talking about the need to form small islands of coherence in the midst of this larger turmoil. I'm sure many of you have come across that phrase. Gene felt really strongly that those small islands should not just be islands of focusers, as lovely as these are, and that's a part of it. But he felt really strongly that we should have like islands of people where we are bringing together a handful of practices. Like he would say to people, learn focusing and learn this and learn that and learn that. You don't have to learn 20 things, but learn 3 or 4 things and bring together people from those communities, because that is going to be what it takes to form the new towns. And the new towns was his image of what it was going to take to birth the new culture that was needed. and it came from his reading of how the transition from the feudal age into the modern age and how it all started in the towns, the medieval towns in Europe before it became part of our larger world. And this was this whole world theory thinking that he had developed, which I found so deeply moving. And I don't really hear very often anyone else talking about it. So I feel like it's a bit my burden, and it's a lovely burden. I'm happy to share it. And yet, it is a little different from, but it's different from, but it's not opposite to. It's resonant with. And so for me, when Greg spoke about his generosity, like, oh my God, the generosity of the founder of something saying, don't just learn what I have taught you, learn what I've taught you and just and this and bring them together in a deep way where we can see how each of our traditions can enrich the other. And I think some of you must have heard this too, because when I heard this, he wasn't speaking only to me. He was in, small conference rooms at Stony Brook and at Garrison, and there were other people there too, right? So I don't think I hallucinated this, and I do think it's important. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to pass it forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosa. It's so important. I so appreciate being reminded of the image of the towns and creating these towns and this interaction with others, not staying in some narrow world, but this sense of it's through our interacting with others, with the world, with greater, that these towns get rich, get deep and wide at the same time, that it's not just deep and it's not just wide.
Thank you. And if I may, just a small PS, his term for it was practices of interhuman attention. That we have neighbors, and it's our neighbors. We have neighbors who have also been developing interhuman attention in their own ways. And we have a real gift in the way that we practice interhuman attention. And so we need these communities
Yeah.
need to from each other so that we create a rich and vibrant town. Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe let's just pause one moment with let us each take interhuman attention. That has so many threads to it, interhuman attention. How we are that, and how are we manifesting that? Thank you. Katerina, call on somebody, please.
John Das in Istanbul, would you like to speak?
Hello, everybody. I don't know what to say, but I've never seen Gendlin. I have heard him from some friends from nonviolent communication, and I remember that I attended to focusing-oriented therapist course, and I remember that I was reading some of the papers that was sent from the course. And I remember that I was feeling joyfulness while I was reading Gendlin's writings. And now I understand that my body was responding to the things that I was reading. Something like you incorporate what you experience in your existence and you carry forward. And reading these things was resonating in me in a way. So Gendlin for me is about understanding what we are experiencing in life. So something like that. And also I want to appreciate Greg's and Lynn's existence here. They were also another other dimensions for me that my mind opened. Of course, I know that there are many other people in focusing world, but I had interactions with them. And maybe I want to give the word to Banu. She is also from Turkey and translated Jean's book into Turkish. And years ago, when I heard about focusing, spontaneously I have taken the book of Gendlin in Turkish that Banu translated, but I read it, but I didn't know that it was about focusing or anything. Then I realized that I have read this book years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, emphasizing that you felt it in your body. You were hearing these terms and there was a resonance. Just like when Dana was saying, reading the process model, something happened. It wasn't just here. It was a total experience of this is a big something that has life in it. And thank you so much for that. Katerina.
And Banu, you are one of the many translators. Would you like to say something now?
Well, those who have met me know I'm rarely at a loss for something to say. And I can always say something. And actually, John Dash doesn't remember, but I was the first person. I was like, he doesn't remember when we did a mini workshop in Istanbul when I used to live in the US. But long story, and I'm really glad to have him talk and be here. And I was one of the people that knew Gendlin quite well at the end of his life. So that's why I didn't volunteer to speak also. I think it's from indirect. But I can speak to my indirect experience. Since we mentioned the translation, I looked at focusing in grad school and I'm like, this is boring. And it sounds nice, but one of our professors made us do it. And I was like, okay, but it felt distant from me. And then I was trying to translate some books to Turkish, very young and excited, and and I also took focusing with me just on a hunch. I was actually interested in translating a sci-fi fantasy book that had a lot of psychological ideas, and the publisher picked focusing. They loved it. So I said, okay, I'll do this. Never translated anything before, pre-internet being what it is. This was like 2002 or something. And as I translated it, knowing myself, I would not have read it with such attention if I hadn't translated it. And when I translated it, of course, I was not immediately in that process, converted. And I was just amazed at finding something like this that had so much nuance and not a word was wasted. When I still recommend a little focusing book to people, and I say it will seem boring if you're like me, but there is not a sentence that is wasted in that book. And please read it. And it surprises me when I hear a lot of focusers that haven't read Gendlin's book, The Focusing. But it also makes sense because, reading can be tricky. And I just appreciate what Greg said about the incredible generosity and this very humble but very serious rigor. When I met him later on and the conversations we had, in sharing his work and sharing his vision, what Rosa said about the towns, I was a part of that conversation. There's a lot to be picked up in his work without becoming disciples, because my fear is like anything, this can turn into a religion of sorts. And meaning that we take one piece and leave out the rest. So I appreciate you having these conversations, Lynn, and continuing the living interaction of the people, even if you've been so consistent with doing everything that you've been doing and holding the complexity. And together we can, as we keep talking and exchanging, keep the intensity. Wow, okay, I had a lot to say, and thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you,
And
Banu.
I'm happy to be in contact with anyone who wants to be in contact, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vanu. And Katerina, is there anyone else who was signed up to speak? Or is it open now?
From Austria. You mentioned some things. Would you like?
Yes. Thank you, Katerina. Yes, this is my first time here. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here with spirits. I'd just like to say basically two things to address the questions that were posed at the beginning. So how did I first encounter Gene's work? And the second one is Gendlin still alive in my life? I'll try to be compact with those answers. Well, I probably came across focusing in a unusual way. I found the definition of the term focusing in a book on brainwave entrainment. It was something I was interested in back in about 15 years ago. And there are types of entrainment that can bring stuff up buried down deep, and focusing was mentioned as a way to deal with whatever comes up. So that impressed me, and I wanted to find out. So at the time, for my network in Vienna, I was, as a friend of mine was a Feldenkrais practitioner, and she led me to someone who, Christoph Habegger, and he mentioned your workshops. And so back in 2012, 11 or 12, 10, 11, 12, some of you embodied Vienna. And from there, the sources, so of the embodied living, focusing, before back then it was 4 levels of in relationship focusing with Ann Weiser Cornell. And then after that, I began here in Vienna and complete that. So that was my first introduction to that. And I was still alive in my. It's basically, I just look at the screen and I can see it. The people I interact with. People. That's one aspect. The other aspect is the city I live in, Vienna, which is Gene's hometown. So I'm basically embedded in, immersed in that small part of the system in which Gene grew up. And memories still in Vienna of that time, the difficult times back then when he grew up. And so that has had the effect on me. Another aspect I have of the actions I've had with him. I interacted with him only in the last few years of his life during the online course Cornell organized with him, conversations with Gene. So a few things stood out from that. Three aspects stood out. One was what I would call the uncomfortable question that Gene would pose. And this resonates a bit with what mentioned earlier regarding Gene's rigor. The most uncomfortable question, when I would say something and Gene would say, "What do you mean by?" And then I would, of course, go deeper and to try to understand what I actually wanted to say. And he mentioned at some other point that by asking that question, that 100% get someone to go inside. And he was right about that. That was one memory. The other memory is the time he actually apologized to me, even though I didn't apologize and I didn't think it was after a conversations course, a meeting online. Well, I had mentioned a certain personality system and that a certain first I resonated with the description of a certain personality type. And Gene said, no, one should external measures to gauge oneself. One should simply look freshly inside and see what it is. The following meeting, before anything else started, he asked, I'd like to apologize because I didn't register when you said that you resonated with something. Because if somebody resonates with something, that's their process. That's their own business. So I thought that was extremely decent and very human of him to apologize for something that I would have considered minor, but it obviously was important to him. And in retrospect, it was important to me. Mm. Finally, the thing that one last thing I noticed from this online conversations course with Gene and Anne was it became very interested and very excited by when a project was mentioned. Usually somebody would invite somebody else to come along to take the conversation session. And it was always a project, and Gene would get excited and listen. And I didn't really understand it at the time until years later, I read the article Rosa was referring to about combining focusing with other things. So that's the power of the word "and," where as opposed to many other pioneers come with new modalities into the world, and they push their modalities as though they're the best thing and the only thing. Gene had the rigor and the intellectual honesty to say that himself was not enough. So those are the things that have impressed me. That's why that's how I discovered his work, and that's the few interactions I have with him in his life, and those things are still living in me. Yeah. So
thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. And I know for me, maybe for many of us, to take forward that teaching, something resonated in another human being. That was their process. Something was alive in another human being. And he apologized for it, but less interested in the apology than in the teaching, that how often I hear something from somebody that's living in them, and rather than affirming it, I might say, well, yeah, but. And what a great teaching that here, it was so important to him in that forum that he connected to your resonating with something, even if he didn't. Well, thank you. That's a really important teaching. Katerina?
So maybe we'll just see who would like to step up.
Yeah, so we can just open it to the whole forum with, it can be questions, it can be sharing of your experience, but what's alive from our being together? I see Meg has a hand. Hi, Meg.
Hi, hello. I wanted to share what I really am grateful to Gene for, which I think is something close to what Greg has already said. And it is the concept of implicit precision. And what I mean by that is that if you read the paper with this title, or if you follow the process in a process model, you get an unfolding of life. But the way was speaking to me, the spark that really lighted up a process model for me really happened on page 29, where he gives the definition of what implying means. And in order to understand what the definition was, I really have to go back to the text that he had written. And then it started, implicit precision started with a dialogue, and I call it a hermeneutical dialogue between me and the text. And that dialogue is really what it is still by me. And sometimes, I fight with Gendlin. For example, I'm not at all sure that he should have hidden all of his knowledge of the past behind new walls, like he does for crossing, or he does for circumlocution. I think he should have said crossing is what other people meant by abduction, or he should have said circumlocution is really what other people meant by hermeneutic circle. But in that way, by leaving open all these findings, I think, Gendlin gives us authorship. So it makes us feel that we are really authoring our texts, our live texts. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Meg. It's beautiful that you're in conversation with Jean, and it continues onward.
I'd like to say that it was a joy to sometimes it was a pain in the ass, but at times it was a joy to argue with Gene, and I still argue with him and dialogue with him. And one of the things that I loved was that in the early days, Gene helped me to learn dialogue by taking my sides, who would be arguing about something, usually about relationality. And then he would say, well, if I were you, I would say this and this and this. And that was such a wonderful way of learning something about interaction and authorship and holding different positions at the same time. And it was so encouraging. And I love to pass that on, have people take people's side for things.
I'd like to add something if we're waiting for someone, but I don't want to take the turn from someone who hasn't spoken.
Go ahead, Manu.
Some of you may have heard me say this before, but one of Gene's actually biggest concerns was making a difference in the world, at least in the last years of his life. I didn't meet him when he was younger. He was very interested in current events and what was happening. He was even willing to start a Facebook page, although he didn't quite get how it functioned, and let me run it, because he wanted to be with what was alive, not just his own theory. And he was very interested, like I think a lot of the earlier greats were of that era, on conflict and conflict resolution, especially in what's happening in the Middle East. That was one of his last real concerns, and he wanted to make an impact on the world. And one of the things he said was, I feel like I failed, which I completely disagree with. But I would like to add his spirit with, I don't completely disagree, but that's add the spirit of, yeah, it is very nice to have the feeling of a theory that explains things and that makes it more comfortable to live in the world. And there was a term, I can't remember it right now, I think at the end of the process model, like it was ongoing theory, ongoing living. He was more interested in life as it is and being human than folding back on his own theory. So I just wanted to put that in there as well. And he was an example to me that way, of that humility and connectedness.
Someone else, anyone can unmute. You don't have to raise a hand. You can. Oh, I see Larry raised a hand, so let's go ahead with Larry.
Well, the thing I think of when I think of Gene is generosity again, because I corresponded with him over a course of quite a number of years, on and off, about the question of attention. And he was just so generous in page after page of correspondence. And I just wish that I have all of it, except I think the very first letter from him in which he apologized for not writing for 6 months because he's just coming up for air from a long project. This was around the late 70s, which I'm guessing was the process model. And later he sent me a box with a stapled little blue packages of the process model, which I should have kept, but I threw it away after I got the book. But anyway, we talked about the question of attention. That's been my life work, and he helped me so much on that question. But 3 years after he died, while I was working on the book, I had a very difficult problem in my book. How do I proceed? And I said, I'm going to have to bring language in. I have to start a new chapter where I combine attention, language, and the body. And the thing developed so that I came up with a new model that essentially replicates the implying occurring dynamic in Gene's book. But it uses just a simple structure: attention, language, and the body. And when I discovered it, the relations between those three entities was astonishing. And to this day, that was around 2020. My work is to carry that model forward, and I use it in different contexts, and something new always comes up. But I do believe it is fully consistent. As a matter of fact, when I wrote the chapter, I drew on Gene's work heavily, and Charles Taylor. Those were the two figures I drew on it. And then when I had to apply the model further in writing the book, I said, what would Gene do here? I would always go back to his thought, even though this was not a model of his. This was something he was new. And that's my work now, is to develop that in all different contexts, that model. So his work is really living in me every moment of what I do.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Larry. Wow. Attention, language, and the body, and carrying Gene forward in that way. Thank you for that contribution. And I see Barbara Dickinson, and after that I see Jonathan.
Hi, Russell, and thank you for doing this. And thank you, Lynn and Rachel and the team. I was going to stay quiet, but something Banu said touched me so much about Gene thinking that he had failed in the world when it came to how to handle conflict. I came to focusing the way a lot of people did, through a therapist, but I came to Gene and to know him as the consultant, to him as the client. And that was very different from most of what I hear people talk about, because he was coming to me with his problems and asking for my help, which blows my mind on many levels when I think about who Gene is to the world. But we spent a year of weekly meetings together, and there are just two things. I can't go into the details because it's too long, but in the middle of our time together, we had this really bad conflict. It was based in a matter of trust, and for the people that knew Gene personally, they might have encountered he had some serious issues around trust. But he didn't want our association to end, and he came back to me and said, what are we going to do about this? And I thought, here's Gene Gendlin in the world asking me, what are we going to do about a conflict? And we ended up with a one sentence each, We were only allowed to say one sentence each. And I'm humbled to tell you that was not his idea. It was mine, simply because I didn't want to be berated endlessly by anybody anymore. And we did that for many, many weeks, resolved our conflict. I have written about this. It is available. And the other thing I wanted to say is somebody mentioned Gene and projects. There were about a dozen projects that in those years, this was 2011 and 2012, that he wanted to see come into the world, but there weren't enough people to work on them. And so I wrote about them too. And I just wanted to add to this assemblage today that there was this very human side of Gene that I was so privileged to spend time with and to try to share with others. So I'm really glad to be here today. I'm really glad to celebrate him. I hope to celebrate him in Vienna next year. And thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. Jonathan.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. First, I'm curious. I'd love to start with the question. Barbara, what was your association with Gene? Were you his therapist, or sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
No, you don't know me. I am neither therapist nor philosopher. I'm a business person. And I consulted with the Institute, and Gene asked me to stay on and consult with him and his wife.
Thank you. I feel so fortunate to be here and be able to speak in this space with so many elders and this, whatever this is. I don't know. I don't think Gendlin would like the word tradition. Yeah, there's a lot of gratitude and reverence that I have for that which is blossoming through me through this kind of flinting. And even as now as I speak, there's a trust that I have that I can feel into, that something wants to come through in the speaking. And this work has given me the real-time experiencing moment by moment of implying, carrying forwards, that it's not just this concept or some kind of practice that I do once a week or twice a week, but it feels like foundationally changed the way that I'm experiencing moments in an experience. There's a sense of trust that I'm having in the unfolding, and I get to feel the pleasure of carrying forward. I want to really share my huge gratitude to you, Lynn. You're my foundational introduction to this work, not just from the content of which you shared with us, but your livingness, and in our interacting and in interaction, I feel like I have this kind of a something that doesn't quite have words yet. And the fact that I can honor that it's just the something here in a society in which all somethings say, oh, well, I don't know, let me just set it aside. But I know through this work how it's like, that's like the last thing that Gendlin would want me to do. He, like, having never even spent time with him in real life, I can feel his fervor in that he values my experience more than I learned to value it. That's so precious. It's given me the ability to begin to value my experiencing the livingness of my carrying forward, and to be able to value that in others.
Wow.
Thank you, Jonathan. That sentence is so powerful, that he, being with him, or being in that atmosphere that he helped create, that he could model valuing your experience more than you valued it, and how, what an example that we maybe sometimes can be for each other, that, so the most people, I feel, in ordinary language, in ordinary society, devalue what's living in them, especially if it doesn't make sense. And so then we try to put it in a box that makes sense, often destroying what's living and what's new. And to have somebody, to be in the presence of hopefully people like us sometimes that can see beyond what the person is saying even, and what they're thinking is important, and go, wait, there's something in this human being that isn't coming across yet in a conscious way, but I value that. And wow, what a gift to give to humanity, to create environments where that happens. Thank you for
What a
that.
testament it is that I get to provide that for others, having never met him.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, Jonathan. Yes.
Yes, I would say something, please, if this is okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
Freda.
Hello, everybody. I'm such a joy to be here. I want to tell something or share something from a European point of view, because Jean went to Europe between the years 1992 and 1997. All those years, every summer, to summer school and teaching German at the border of Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. And I started to learn focusing in 1995, and I just want to bring in a little bit what I learned when I met him in Berlin in 1996, which was a presentation in a huge hall with lots of people. There was one sentence he was really, like plugging into my self. That is that he said in German, of course, you can dwell in your right knee. And this is because he did his tuning in into the body just from the feet starting to the upper body on the right side of the leg, and to stop at your knee. And in your knee there is place to dwell in. And this makes it all so spacious, my whole existence. So nowadays, when I feel I lose connection to my inner self, this sentence comes up again. My whole existence can dwell in my right knee. And this sort of brings me home. And I just want to share this. It can be a very simple sentence, which embraces the whole meaning of his philosophy and his way of being and teaching. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frida. Yes. That's so amazing to see. We've had people talk about the living connection to all and everything, and now we have the living connection through the knee. The infinite large and the infinite small is all one thing. It's amazing.
I just wanted to say I'm struck. It's beautiful to hear from so many people sharing, both who knew him and who knew him kind of in a more abstract way or indirect way. But Gene, what I'm always so touched with is him saying, I'm just another shaky person in a chair. Yes, I'm the therapist, but I'm just human. I have my, humanity. But also another beautiful thing he said, and I think listening to all of you, these things are so balanced. He says, there's only one of you in all of time and all of existence. And I'm, of course, paraphrasing. I don't know the exact quote, but that sentiment that what someone was saying, how whatever you were after and trying to express, whatever someone was up against, he was right there, and it was the most important thing in the moment. And he was, it sounds like, so committed to it and invested. So the preciousness of each person's life, as well as just the humanity and the humility of living and of being alive, and to carry both of those things together is very precious. And from everybody sharing, that's coming more alive for me. So thank you all.
Don't know that I have something new to say, but I'm moved to say it anyway. um, so I'm just struck by the range of people here, from different places, and there's some background noise someplace. Somebody's clicking or clanking. If they could mute themselves, it would be nice. But and how Jean touched so many of us in different ways. Like some of it overlapped, but the way I met Jean in 1995 at my week-long, whatever it is, that was the last week-long in Chicago, actually, before the Institute moved to New York. And I was so struck then, and in the different times that I got to see him and sit with him and learn with him, just that here's this person who is so unpretentious and unassuming, and anyway, it's very, very special in that. And what he gave me as a person who grew up with, I didn't realize it at the time, only actually got my diagnosis a year ago, but with this complex trauma and all kinds of stuff, and a very, very harsh inner critic, just the softness, the sweetness, the quality of attention that he gave. And actually, I have to say that the other two teachers that I was privileged to learn with there was Janet Klein and Mary McGuire, gave me something that I'd never experienced in my life, including my focusing training up to before then. But it was very, very special. And it's something that I aspire to give to my students and my clients, which is just this quality of attention and acceptance of whatever is there has a good reason for being there. And can we be curious about it? And can we be loving towards it even when it's not PC? And to me, that is so important. And I think we'd have a better world if that were there. So that's, I wanted to say that. They also, I think in your blurb, put these things in my ears that I'm not hearing, so I'll sleep. Will you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Is the carrying forward of Jean's work. The reason that I learned focusing in the first place is somebody said to me, I went to a workshop on the coast of California at Big Sur, California in 1993. And the teacher there was not a certified focusing trainer, but she did give a focusing exercise, which I still remember. It was a 5-minute exercise. I still remember what came for me. It's still alive in me, that exercise. But she said to me, focusing really helped me with my inner critic. I think it would help you. And that's something that I feel, I don't mean to, this sounds arrogant, I don't mean it this way, is that we've been able to take it further since Jean. Like, he gave pieces that are really helpful, but that like other practices, again, going to what Rosa said, and I remember Jean saying this over and over, that focusing is not meant to be done alone. You're meant to go out and integrate it with something else. Mindful self-compassion, the felt sense, just different teachings that I've picked up along the way, including focusing ones that have, I think, deepened how we can be with this quality that so many of us learned when we were growing up. I don't, I'm 71 now, so I think it was pretty typical the way that I was raised. And we were raised with this harsh, this way that this is the way you're supposed to be. This is not the way. These are the rules. And it takes a while to unlearn that in just in ourselves, with our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our loved ones, and our communities. So anyway, I think that's something that we've been able to go further, because I remember Jean said, just tell it to go away. and that worked for Jean, and that's great. That didn't quite work for me. Anyway, it's still a work in progress. And I think the final thing I'll say, and then I will stop, is that my life has been so profoundly changed by Jean Gendlin's work. I do have an academic background, but I don't consider myself in any way an intellectual like many of you here who are steeped in philosophy and other things that I'm not. But I am definitely an experiential, very deeply sensing being. And I feel as though Jean's work has allowed me to be alive, to be vital, and to bring that into my world wherever I happen to be. And for that, I'm very grateful. It's wonderful to see all of you. And thank you to the group that made this happen. I love this. I look forward to it. I put it on my calendar every year. It's Jean Gendlin birthday celebration. Thanks.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, Lip, I see your hand, and then Sophie. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lip. I'm Chinese, originally from Malaysia, for a long time for university. I first got focusing when I was in a bookstore in London called Watkins before internet, Amazon. And I don't know why I picked it. I read it and it impacted me. But then I did it for a long time. And I used it in therapy prior to that in both besides studying therapy on my own. And then I explored for was the years new being at the same time. My offer here is to carry this carrying forward. There's little acts of other interests besides focusing and felt sensing and thinking at the edge. Is which I'm most experienced, which is the language touch. So
Lip,
I'm trying
Lip. The sound is coming in and out.
Okay.
I think maybe if you move less, the microphone will be steadier.
Okay, thank
Maybe.
you for that suggestion.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just a bit excited. So language of touch is beyond links. It's also a human language, the touch language, in terms of wellness, and then also the language of being, because ways of being developed from within and bring us more alive. So on the theme of being more alive, I think we can bring the touch and the islands of being, all the other arts to make this big continent that can a better chance of enduring and spreading.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Lip.
Thank you, Lip. More
Yes.
alive. That feels like, yeah. Anyhow, I just wanted to say
one thing that's unfolding more recently that is continuation of the unfolding that has happened since I met the work of focusing and many teachers and many ways it unfolded in my life. I am just learning a new music instrument from India. It's called tempura, and it's an instrument. Maybe some of you really know this instrument. I'm just getting friendly with it, being acquainted with it, with her. I call her her, even though it's a he in this language. It's an instrument that is in the background, but that vibrate the sound of the universe, and that acts like a drone, like the air or the ground we walk on. That's always there, but we don't, for unless we bring light or attention to it, it's there. So this instrument has connected me to a root that I call the root of my soul that was exiled. And it's beautiful because it's so like the instruments, a very ego-less instrument, really in the background. But it's really the holding. So I feel like my chance to encounter his work really like unfolded in so many ways that brought me more alive, like you say, Lip, more alive. And everything I touch, I can also be more alive in a very big and tiny, tiny way. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
I wonder if we need a breath and a stretch. So many voices and so rich. Like a huge feast. Some people may be struggling with, well, should I say the thing that's there for me? Or maybe I shouldn't. I would encourage everybody to say what's there for you.
Put the OTA Summit in the chat. Maybe Lynn, you'd like to say something about it?
Sure. Is this a good time to say it? This is like an intermission. On January 10th, we're having a meeting of the new association, FOT Association, about focusing around the world and FOT around the world, and the different flavors in the feast of FOT around the world. So that will be on January 10th at is it 11 o'clock New York time? Well, you'll put it in the chat.
Yes, it is. It's 11 o'clock and it changes the time every time. It's a little different so people can come. Yeah.
I also want to announce that anybody that's free this coming Sunday, we're having a theoretical symposium of putting into action together the way of thinking through the felt sense and just enjoying the thinking process and making theory together and honoring each other's theories and discovering more together. So that's this coming Sunday at 3:30.
Hi, everybody. It's BJ. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There's a line in a song I love, which is, "Dear desire of every nation." To even imagine that there is a desire, a yearning, a wanting that is not just at the heart of every person, but of every place, everything, every nation. Is just so profound. And for me, it holds the foundation of religion. One of my deep yearnings is that we could that everybody could remember that the evil that lives after us is often well known, and the good that we did is often lost. Well, all of the great religions have good that they have done. And really what I just want to observe is that focusing is a kind of wisdom tradition. In my teaching of religion, I don't hesitate to say it is a religion. But please forgive me if that offends you, and just bear with me a minute. Many of the world's best, greatest traditions, philosophical, ideological, religious, scientific, they all begin with a person. And here we are coming to praise Gene. And all that's in my heart really to say is that one characteristic of whether something becomes a wisdom tradition or not is that it aims to help us understand meaning and purpose, like experiencing and creating meaning. That's one. And the other is that it's about creating the vessel to hold that purpose and that meaning. By focusing on relationships between people, building those small groups that Banu and Rosa, specifically, I heard you mention that those little local communities are what's important. And then what holds the little communities? The bigger and bigger and bigger, I dare to say, organization. I so understand the caution and the hesitation and the worry that we not become another religion. I don't think there's any danger of that. And because if Gene was as humble and as unpretentious as many of you say, if he was as poorly dressed as I have seen him be on videos, there's no danger of focusing ever becoming more than what it is. And I want you all to see I am in my pajamas, and I am almost always in my pajamas. But thank you. Every focusing session, I end by saying, thanking my body and thanking all the teachers of focusing who have made it their own and who have brought it to us. So that's it from me. Thank you all for being here and making this happen.
Thank you.
Wow, BJ. And we have a quote from Steve Moskovitz, which I will read. I just put it in the chat. Steve Moskovitz. In my first telephone call with Gene, he introduced himself by saying, I am Jewish. God isn't. After talking about his hope to bring focusing into synagogue life and supporting me to do so in my own synagogue, we decided to develop a focusing partnership that lasted from 2005 to 2012. The first time I listened to him, I was so anxious that my skills of deep listening were impaired. At the end of his focusing time, he said to me, I could feel your aliveness at the other end of the phone. It was the most profound encouragement and support I had ever received. It carries me and inspires me to carry that forward with others. Steve Machkovich.
Thank you, Katerina.
Jonathan, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. I don't know if it's the right time or space, and I'll let people decide whether it's the right time to answer it. But in all this sharing, the question that comes up is like, oh, I wonder what the source of his dot 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 is, that he is the way that he is, that gives so much space for everyone, and really valuing that. That's the curiosity that comes up for me. That I'd love to hear people that were close to him if that was the right time to speak about it.
Well, I just want to say, I don't want to respond in detail to your question, but I just want to say that there's been a conversation about that in either the focus, well, I think it's the focusing list because I'm not a focusing oriented therapist, so I'm not on that list. But maybe some other people here.
Wait, sorry about that.
Beautiful, though.
Yes.
Maybe some other people here can continue pointing you in this direction, Jonathan, because there's been a lovely discussion, exploration, dialogue, one of the focusing lists about the various people that Gene was influenced by, and also why he doesn't want to say, oh, I was inspired by this person and I was inspired by this other, but kind of prefers to speak of it freshly. But I do know that one of those people was Boop. And then there's others. So it's like, I do think that um, uh, thinking about and honoring and discovering who our sources of inspiration are is a valuable thing. And Jean had many, and that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you.
Well, I can answer with what I said before, I think, that it's, for me, the dot, dot, dot is an invitation to come into a hermeneutical circle with him and let your felt sense speak.
Yeah, I have no idea how to summarize the how Gene got to where he got to, Jonathan. It's a fascinating question, except it brings me to his living experience somehow unfolded. And it points to, isn't that happening for you right now? And for me and for us, and maybe there are things we can learn if we could identify kind of particular sources or particular influences. But I also know it's so often, in my experience, unnameable what influences how we end up where we end up. Now that I look back on my life and I look back on the things I wish didn't happen and how important they were, the things that I really wanted to happen and how seemingly less important they were, and the unfolding of a unique life. So I just want to end, because I'm going to have to get off the call, just totally valuing the uniqueness of each of our living and the encouragement from Gene, as from other great masters, to really value the unique gifts we are given, especially the ones we don't think of as gifts. That in Zen we would say, everything is for our benefit. If you don't see how it's for your benefit yet, well, that's a question. How is this something that's being given to me, this injury, this loss, this joy, how is it for my benefit in the unique unfolding of this human being? And I know each of you have contributed to me today, and I'm grateful for that. And Lynn, thank you for inviting me to be part of this, and I'm going to need to get off the call.
Thank you so much, Russell. We so appreciated your holding the space for us today. And I think we're going to end with a poem from Dorothy. Thank you so much for being with us, Russell.
Bless us all. Thank you.
Yes, Rachel chose this poem out of her feeling it represented Jean Gendlin in the way of the exuberance toward life. And it's William Wordsworth poem, My heart leaps up when I behold. My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began. So is it now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man, and I could with my days to be bound each to each by natural piety.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all next week. Those of you who can join us for Help the Helpers, that has been meeting every Monday for 5 years now. My goodness, it's amazing. So thank you. Have a good holiday.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
What a wonderful group this was.
I'm just adding the poem to the chat.
Good.
Wonderful to see you, Jonathan, again.
Yes, and I loved what you said.
John.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, lovely to see you and Olivia.
Yeah.